Welcome back everybody for another YouTube video, all in crypto here, and today I am going to be giving my price outlook for the DOT token in 2024. Now the DOT token of course is the native currency of the Polkadot ecosystem, and over the next 6 months we have so much content to bring you in regards to what is actually happening within the rich ecosystem of Polkadot. We're going to be diving into liquid staking and why that is important. We're going to be looking at decentralized data storage, decentralized computing, DeFi, and everything in between. We're even going to be diving into healthcare and how distributed ledger technologies on the Polkadot ecosystem can actually benefit and help the healthcare sector. So we have so much to cover, and really, as it is the start of 2024, I wanted to get this video out the way of and talk about the DOT token, its price, where it's currently at, and where I believe it's heading. Now, I know some of you may not be that interested in Polkadot, and in regards to the price of the DOT token, you may be far more technically orientated. So do become a subscriber, because we are going to be bringing you lots of content involving that kind of stuff. This, however, is going to be a purely technical video. We're going to be looking at the charts, and I'm going to be showing you where I think DOT's at and where it's heading. Technically, part of what I do and what I have always sort of sought to be is a technical analyzer, and ultimately, you know, I do speculate on the cryptocurrency markets. Now, whether you think that's right or wrong is entirely up to you. However, I do think the vast majority of people in the crypto space are not necessarily in it for the technology. They are in it from a perhaps speculative point of view. Now, that is kind of sad, I guess, in one way, but you also have to look at it in regards to the other way, and that is that, you know, we wouldn't have so many people here, we wouldn't have projects perhaps as far ahead as they are, and we wouldn't have seen the kind of investment into this space perhaps if it wasn't for that. But the underlying technology of Polkadot is truly genius. We did a video covering that this week. Let's get into our Polkadot price prediction, or forecast, I should say, for 2024. So in front of us, what we have is the Polkadot price chart. Now, DOT right now at the time of recording sits at around about $7.22. And this was following a run up to the $9 mark that we were predicting from what is an inverse head and shoulders that was forming on the lower timeframes. And we are going to start there. We're going to be showing you why we think Polkadot has bottomed. It's showing the exact same signs of Bitcoin when we got back into Bitcoin back on January the 5th today. And ultimately, you know, it is following, and as it progresses, generating for us further upside targets that are all technically signaled. Now, we aren't going to be giving our price forecast based on where we think Polkadot is going to go. We're going to be giving our price forecast based on what the charts are telling us, and ultimately predict further ahead as a result. And I think you guys are going to like what we've came up with. So what am I referring to in regards to, let's just look at Polkadot more broadly and where it's currently at. What am I referring to in regards to Polkadot is giving us the same signs that Bitcoin is? So markets are a kind of ecosystem of their own. You know, you've got this kind of debt markets and the currency markets at the top, and then crypto is right down at the bottom. So we have to have a sort of broad macro context that supports the direction that we think DOT is going in. And you guys that watch me daily on my daily market updates will know that we've been giving that. First of all, when we were calling the sort of change from a bear market into a bull market in 2023, and now we ultimately think there's going to be continuation of the bull market. The entire crypto space has broken out, and ultimately what I mean by Polkadot is showing us the same sort of signs that Bitcoin did when we looked to get back into it on the 5th of January 2023. I am of course referring to this bullish divergence that is showing up. So the RSI is often a very misunderstood tool. What I'm going to do is actually get rid of these draws. The RSI, I think, is a very misunderstood tool. You know, most people don't actually understand what they're looking at when they're looking at the RSI, but the RSI is really a momentum-based indicator. It's an oscillator of sorts because it pivots around a kind of 50% mark. And ultimately, what a bullish divergence is essentially, it's a divergence between the price on the chart and what the indicator is telling you, meaning there's a kind of a different picture being painted. So the RSI tracks momentum. The low that we had for Polkadot back here on the 20th of December saw significant momentum to the downside. And the low that we put in on the 16th of October 2023 actually had a lot less momentum and perhaps conviction behind it. Now, a bullish indicator is often the precursor for a trend change. Polkadot has been, it's an early inkling that the trend is likely to change. So Polkadot has been, up until this point, in a downtrend along with the rest of the cryptocurrency market, and we believe that has now changed. Not only do we see that from a price point of view, but we also see that from a break in market structure point of view. You know, you can see you have a concession of lower lows and lower highs here, i.e. a downtrend, and Polkadot for the first time has actually gone on and put in a higher high than the previous trend it was currently in. So there's a number of things that give us confluence to suggest that there's a good probability that Polkadot has actually based here and is forming a base. Now, one thing that I teach in the Patreon is stage analysis. I believe that stage analysis is pretty much the best way to technically analyze a market from an investment point of view. It's very simple to learn. You know, I don't think technical analysis needs to be complicated. I actually think the most simple methods still work today, and they've worked for a very long time. Yes, there are different factors to the market than when a lot of these methods were produced. However, there is still a degree of accuracy with them, and we're going to be showing you that over the course of this year. And if you've been watching the channel pre this year, you'll know that we've got a lot of our technical targets right. So Polkadot is showing signs of bottoming. Where Polkadot is currently at is essentially what we would define as a base. So markets will often base with a technical kind of pattern of a double bottom, an inverse head and shoulders like Bitcoin had, or something of the sort. So we think Polkadot really is showing all the signs of that. So this is what we would define as a stage one base, and I'll put on the screen a number of other stage one bases that all led to a breakout. And we actually think that Polkadot has broken out. What I'm going to do is actually add the volume onto this chart, because you want to see on a breakout volume, which we've seen a little bit of, nothing spectacular, but certainly amplified based on the volume we've had over the past year. So this is really what we're looking at for Polkadot, a stage one base. And actually, just like with Bitcoin, just like with others dominant, just like with many of the charts that we look at, you get this kind of nestling head and shoulders. Coinbase is a great example, and that's often how you'll base up and down in a market. You know, you'll do a concession of kind of head and shoulder-esque patterns. It kind of looks like what you draw on a whiteboard as a kid. And that's ultimately what we think is taking place for Polkadot. So let's now drop down the timeframes, and we're going to be showing you the route Polkadot could essentially take to get to $150. I don't know when that's exactly going to take place, but what I am calling for is a potential sub or $20+ Polkadot price prediction for this year that I think has been technically signaled, and if it plays out, it's going to give us further upside targets. So let's just address where we currently are. So ultimately, we've got those bullish divergences, we've got a break in market structure, and we right now believe that Polkadot essentially has broken out of its stage one base into what we would define as a stage two. And whenever you break out of something, it's very often met with a retest. We can show you lots of examples of this. We were tracking it all on the stock market, and ultimately Polkadot is really following that roadmap. So what I want to do is actually drop right down the timeframes and show you how this year we were, or last year we were looking at a $9 Polkadot price prediction that got met in December 2023. And ultimately, this has now given us the potential for a further inverse head and shoulders target to set up that's going to lead to a further inverse head and shoulders target that may take place that ultimately could give you around about $150 Polkadot price prediction, which would be lovely. A lot has to happen. It's important for me to say that just because we're looking at this, it has to follow the path that we're setting out for it, which we ultimately believe it's been doing thus far. So let's drop down the timeframes and let's take a look. So earlier this year, and it actually wasn't me that spotted this, it was one of my community members. Let's get rid of our stage one base. We were essentially looking at the potential for this as a head and shoulders to play out and give us that $9 price prediction. So let's get into it. You can see that this is clearly a very, very key level of significance. And we were ultimately saying that Polkadot was essentially forming an inverse head and shoulders that, if you zoom out, is also sort of confirmed with a macro double bottom, where you've got the bullish divergence very applicable. Remember, that was our early Bitcoin sign to get in round about the price of $15,000, $16,000. Ultimately, Polkadot is showing all the same signs. So this was our inverse head and shoulders that we had. This ultimately gave us a predicted upside target to the recent price and you can see your breakout is also on volume. You can see that this was our upside predicted target that we had for Polkadot, which saw us get to the $9.30 range. And you can see, isn't it interesting? For those of you that don't believe technical analysis works, please do become a subscriber to this channel, because I will convert you into a believer. Believe me, we've done it with many people, and we plan on doing it with the Polkadot community. So very interesting that this was the technical target that we had generated. This gave us a predicted price target of $9.30. And ultimately, this is where you pulled back from. So if you're unaware of the kind of more broader macro context, do become a daily market subscriber. The interesting thing here, and what we're going to do is we're going to go to a 3-day time frame, is that this predicted target actually ran us into a very key level of significance. And you can see that here, ladies and gentlemen. You can see if you look at where you pull back from, not only was it our projected target from this smaller inverse head and shoulders, but it was also a key level of significance that matched up with this high here that essentially is going to set up a bigger pattern to the smaller pattern that we have down here. Let's actually move the charts around just so I can show you that a little bit better. And this is essentially what we are now looking at, in my opinion. And the interesting thing with the projections of these head and shoulders targets is they run you into essentially what could be new necklines for new head and shoulders moving higher up. So this is what we are currently looking at. And ultimately, at what point are we wrong here? So even though we've got a lot of kind of good feedback, I guess, so far technically from the markets, it has to continue to go in that direction, and we also have to understand at what point are we wrong. So if Polkadot, for example, continued to sell off lower and essentially take out what would be your left shoulder, that would be a bit of a key indicator that there's a lot less likelihood that the pattern is actually going to play out. So what you need to see to protect the next upside target is essentially Polkadot find its feet here and look to come back to this neckline and actually take the neckline, preferably on increased volume. Now, if it does that, you will essentially see Polkadot generate us a new upside predictive target that is actually going to see Polkadot, in our opinion, climb all the way to $25. Now, wouldn't that be absolutely spectacular? Let's go ahead and put that target on the charts. And then it doesn't stop there. You'll notice, just like you had here, just like we're setting up now here, you then run into another key level or thereabouts. And this could ultimately see a new inverse head and shoulder set up. This would be fantastic if it does. We're really forecasting right into the future now, and obviously Polkadot has to follow this blueprint for things to take place. So perhaps it's for me to just stop here and say that actually this is what we're expecting for 2024. And we'll take a zoomed out look in just a second, I think Polkadot in 2024, providing it follows this blueprint, is likely to see a $25 price. No guarantees, just my opinion based on technically what I'm looking at. So if it does this and you get a break of the $9, let's say $9.50 mark, you're then likely going to progress to $25. Now, it's not going to go up in a straight line. There's going to be twists and turns. There's going to be pullbacks. But ultimately, the direction, based on us looking at the probabilities of Polkadot bottoming, now smaller structure that's forming, that's predicting further upside structure, that's actually playing out. The interesting thing is this head and shoulders pattern down here played out. There's now the potential for the broader one to play out, and then potentially an even broader one to play out, which, you're going to need to see a pullback here, may then, and we're going to go right up to the weekly now, see Polkadot, and you can sort of see where we're at right now, that's all been technically generated, then set up once again a broader head and shoulders. And if you don't believe in technical analysis, if you don't believe in this stuff, guys, please do become a subscriber. Save this chart. I will post this chart on Twitter and also save it myself so that we can say, look, we were wrong on this or we were right. Remember, a lot has to happen for this to play out. It has to follow the blueprint that we're setting out for it. But if Polkadot can find its way to $25, then you are going to see potentially the possibilities of wait for it. Let's be exact here, guys. $162 price prediction. Now, it's going to get there. If it follows all of this lower structure and we get to this point, then we can start to look at that higher price prediction. But we have a long way to go. 2024, we're really just looking at this smaller time frame playing out. This really could take a year or so to play out on its own. But once we get to this point, then depending on what it does here, depending on how it sort of forms, then we can look at potential higher price predictions. So there is a lot that has to play out. This is the potential blueprint for Polkadot. I can show you multiple examples of structure just like this that we've watched this year taking place. Some quick examples to show you. Of course, we can give you Bitcoin, stage 1 base, inverse head and shoulders that ultimately gave us a $42 price prediction, $500,000 price prediction that got hit. We're taking a rest here. Do we then set up for potentially, do we get that run to 58,000 for an ETF to get approved? Then a bit of a lull before we see that further continuation. Is that on the cards for Bitcoin? So this is a good example of something that we watched. We can show you many of non-crypto examples. For example, the NASDAQ, stage 1 base, further upside. We can show you things like Meta. We can show you multiple. Microsoft was a great stock for us. You can see very similar. Double bottom, you've got your bullish divergence here as well. We can show you multiple examples of the kind of blueprint and roadmap that we've set out for Polkadot. So perhaps to kind of put a bit of a capstone on all this, for us to see that progression to $25, we need to take that $9 and sort of 50-60 cents range, hopefully on volume, and I do believe it will be, that will ultimately then set us a higher target up that will perhaps give us confluence with or allow for broader structure to play up, that we can give this big macro target of maybe $160 Polkadot price. Now, there's lots of ifs, buts, and maybes there, but do save this video. Do ensure that you refer to this as we progress, and let's see if the roadmap that we've set out for Polkadot does get followed. Of course, we know where we're wrong and we know where we'll pivot, but right now, guys, things look absolutely spectacular for Polkadot. My price prediction for the first 6 months of this year, so the first half of this year, is that Polkadot stands a damn good chance of getting to $25. And then once we've got to that $25 range, then we can start to look at the next 6 months to potentially a year and where we perhaps think Polkadot is going. If you have enjoyed this content, a like is always greatly appreciated. So is a comment. And on that note, I am going to love and leave you. Don't forget to become a subscriber, and I will hopefully see you all in the next YouTube video. Thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next one.